the dogs out of their kennels, and then bring them into the assessment room. This assessment calls for a buckle collar and a 6-foot leash. So then we would enter the room, sit down calmly. We're also taking notes about what the dog is doing while he's in the room. Is he attending to other things? Is he jumping all over me? Is he slamming me like that dog was in that video? And at that point, we're going to try to put a buckle collar on him and a 6-foot leash. Taking notes again on, is he difficult to leash? Can I put this collar on? Am I having difficulty? Is he really easy to handle? Those are all things that are important when you're putting the leash on him. For a large dog, if you were kneeling on the floor, if this dog is eye level to me, or if he is large enough that I think he's going to be able to knock me over if I'm down on one knee, then I'm going to sit in a chair. But you don't want to be hovering over the dog, so if you had a reindeer of that size, or a Chihuahua, or Jack Russell, you don't want to be over the dog, so those types of dogs you want to be in the floor. So I'm going to sit in the chair for this dog, or even kneel on the floor on one knee, never have both knees on the floor.
Unless you're waiting for your turn to demo.
If I'm kneeling on the floor, I'm always going to only have one knee on the floor. It makes it easier to pop up if something were to happen. If you have both knees on the floor or you're sitting Indian style, it's going to take you a lot longer to get off the floor if that dog decides to act aggressively. So we're going to bring him in and we're going to leash him up, and then we're going to start the face test. Let's go over leash for a second. So we're going to go over how to hold the leash. The safest way to hold the leash is to not wrap it around your arm in this nature, because if that dog's pulling on you, he's going to cut off circulation, he's going to injure you, and if he decides to run away or act aggressively in any way, this is a long time to get the leash off and run away. So it's important that when you have the loop, you're just going to put it around one thumb, and that way you can just drop it and be away from the dog if that's necessary. Also, there will be times in the assessment where you'll want to gather up the leash, and again, you don't want to do this number because he's going to be really close to you and you can't drop it. The way that you want to gather the leash is to do it in what we call an accordion style. You're just going to fold it like this. Make sense? You got it? We have leashes if you want to practice.
That actually is a little trickier than it looks, and you get really fast at it, but just do it a couple of times when you get your hands on a leash, and it's important for it to be inside your hand, like she just said, like an accordion rather than around your hand.
And the flat nylon leashes, and especially the single flat nylon leashes, if you have held lots of leashes, some of them are double the thickness. Those are really hard to wad up in your hand, so we usually like to use the 6-foot flat nylons, not leather or like the Weiss Walkies, like a rope type material. Those are just harder to hold.
Right.
Also, just something that I happen to think of, try to use a leash to the extent of your availability that's appropriate size for the dog you're doing.
This would be a little much for a Chihuahua. This might be a little heavy, and I have had the situation where all I have is a big heavy leash for a Chihuahua, and it does mess things up. But yeah, try to have the most size appropriate leash available as long as it's 6 foot long. So I'm going to sit in this chair. I'm going to gather my leash up. At this point, the dog may be wandering away, and I'm going to have to try to get him back in close to me without forcing him to come over. I'm not going to drag him over, and I'm not going to force him to look at me. I'm going to coax him over a little bit, see if he'll come to me. If he comes by me, I even have this on a really energetic dog that's running around like crazy. I will start out holding the leash here so he can't get really far away from me. I'm not going to have to work really hard to get him back too close to me. If I have a dog that's staying at the end of the leash, if he walks by, I'm going to get hold of the leash close to the collar so then I can work on wrapping it up that way. So I'm going to wrap this up, call my dog over. Come on, Perry, come on, Perry. And I'm just going to talk to her, pat my legs, maybe stomp around. If she's not coming to you or you're having difficulty getting her in a position, you can even stand up and walk around for just a moment. You don't want to tour the entire room. Just enough to get the dog to move, take a couple of steps, and then sit down and try it again. Come here, Perry. Come girl. You want to keep your talk with the dog to a minimum. You only want to use talk that is relative to what you're trying to do. I can call the dog to me while I'm trying to get her to come to me, but I don't want to just love on her. Oh, you're such a good girl. Oh, nice girl, Perry. That's not useful. That's not going to give me any good information. I'm developing a relationship with the dog, and that's what we want to stay away from trying to do. We want to remain really neutral and subjective through the whole thing. Objective, sorry. We're toying. Objective through the entire segment. So the dog. So your positioning in the chair. If you're sitting in a chair, you're going to have good posture. You're going to be sitting on the edge of the chair with your body square. Your feet are flat on the ground, shoulder width apart. Keep your shoulders up and your back as straight as you possibly can. When you're pregnant, that's hard to do, but as Becky will show us. And I have done before. You may see some videos of it. But stay upright as much as you can. So you're going to call the dog over, and ideally you want him facing you and his feet in between your legs because you're going to look into his face. It has happened where you have a dog that just wants to sit. He's just sitting in front of you. It's okay. He doesn't have to be directly in front of you. He can kind of be cocked to the side. So then we're going to gather up our leash. I am going to grasp his collar slightly. As a safety measure, we're not putting a lot of restraint on this dog, but as a safety measure, I like to slip my thumb in this collar. That way if he comes at me, I can lock my elbow and he can't go further than the length of my hand or my arm. But just grasp it lightly. I'm not holding him with my entire fist. Grasp his collar lightly. With my other hand, I'm just going to cup his jaw and lift his head up and see. Well, I'm not going to lift him up. I'm just going to apply just gentle pressure and see if he'll look at me. Just going to gaze at his face. This could take anywhere from 1 to 3 seconds. It's not a long gaze. I want to see if he's going to look at my eyes. Is he going to stay looking at my eyes? Is he going to look at my eyes and look away? Or is he not going to look at my eyes at all? Those are things that you want to get. If a dog looks at your eyes and looks away, test is over. You're done. Right? You have the information you need. He looked at me and he averted his eyes.
That's called averting.
Averting.
That's how it's worded in the text.
Yeah.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's the contact, the rest of the body context is what you're going to be scoring as well. It's just something that happens. If you have a dog that's holds eye contact with you, but he remains very soft and he's looking at you lovingly, and then that's a score. If you have a dog that looks at you and then just looks away, but his body remains soft, or he's kind of wiggling around, tail's wagging, just a wiggly, loose body, that's a score. If you have a dog that's busy looking at everything else and he's never even going to pay attention to you, that's a score. If you have a dog that yanks out, that's a score as well.
All those are descriptions on the score sheet. So tomorrow we're going to go into that in detail. We want to do the see the hands-on part.
Right.